Good morning, Fremont family. My name is Dave Flores. Today's devotional is from Mark 8:31 through 38. I'll pause for a moment to let you read the verses before I continue. We know that the way of God are different from the ways of the world. In Isaiah 55:8 through 9, it says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." The disciples learned this, what must have been for them the most shocking thing Jesus ever told them up until now. We are so accustomed to the message of Jesus' crucifixion that it's easy to overlook how jarring that prospect would have been for the disciples. The great hope of the Israelite people at the time was freedom from the Roman overlords. Having seen Jesus' miracles, experienced his magnetic personality as they followed him, and watched him draw enthusiastic crowds, it would have been totally natural for them to assume that Jesus would somehow challenge living under Roman rule. Everything they had seen Jesus do and heard him say until this time had been impressive, and no doubt spurred within them big hopes for the future. But now this, Jesus astonished them and dismayed them with the news that, contrary to all hopes and expectations, he would undergo suffering, be rejected by the religious leaders, and killed. It was the worst possible thing Jesus could have said. Peter always was the one to act quickly, rebuked him. Mark doesn't tell what Peter said, but we can surmise that it was something like, "We have seen what power you have and thought you might free us from the Romans and restore the kingdom of Israel to its previous glory." Jesus responded that such an opinion is a human way of thinking. It's not what we all would have thought had we been among those first disciples. Jesus not only rebukes Peter, but then shocks them even more deeply by telling them that his way of the cross may well be their future too. Those who would follow him will deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. As if that's not enough, Jesus continues with even more unexpected and totally unforeseen news. To save your life, you must lose it. You may lose your lives for Jesus' sake. It was Jesus' way of helping them begin to understand that my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways. It was a bitter pill for the disciples to swallow, but it was necessary that they understand. Otherwise, they would miss the whole point of Jesus' ministry, that he came to give his life for the salvation of them and us. By our human nature, we want to be prosperous, strong, successful, and influential. Jesus has other priorities. He, on the other hand, came to serve, not to be served. His ways are not our ways. Yes, he invites us to follow him and his ways. The theology of the cross, or deny oneself, does not mean a contrived kind of humility. We do not follow Jesus by demeaning ourselves. We are called upon to do the very best we can with the talents and abilities God has given us. To deny oneself means to keep one's priorities in harmony, what Jesus told us in Mark 12:29-31, which are two great commandments: love God and love your neighbor. This was, to be sure, a ray of hope in what Jesus said that day. Although the disciples may not have heard it, Jesus will be killed, but he will also rise again, as reflected in Mark 8:31. Also in Mark 8:35, those who lose their lives for Jesus' sake, in the sake of the gospel, will save it. But at this time, the disciples would have known how those promises would come true. Jesus gives us a hope for the future. But in this text, we are called on to follow him, not just for the future, but in this life. It's not a commitment to an ideal or a set of beliefs. It's a commitment to a person, Jesus Christ. It's a commitment worth making, because when you give your life to Christ, when you decide to cross that wilderness that will cost you everything, you will find your purpose. As we look forward to this coming Sunday's message, may this devotional serve to prepare your heart and mind for God's spoken word. God bless and have a great rest of the week.